Hey everyone, it's Nikolai. So today we are going to talk about gradients. If you're new to Illustrator and you haven't played around with gradients or you've been frustrated by trying to use the gradient panel or the gradient tool, I'm here to help you out. Gradients are a very powerful tool, and especially if they're used well. With great power comes great responsibility, so hopefully I'm going to teach you how to use them the right way. All right, so that's it. Let's just get into it. Okay, so here we are in Adobe Illustrator, and as you can see, I've got my swatches panel up, and I've separated it from the dock by clicking and dragging it off. It'll make things a little bit easier. And let's see, I've got a couple of circles here. Very simple, two circles, one sitting on top of each other, and they're just sitting there. Lonely circles. I'm going to go ahead first and add a gradient to one, and we're going to start with the most basic gradient, which is called a radial gradient. So I'm going to make sure that that fill is activated by hitting X on my keyboard, and then just click on that gradient. And you can see here that it adds a nice left to right, right to left linear gradient, and that's well and good. To change this color a little bit, which I want to do, I'm going to go up here to my swatches panel, and because I don't want this to be solid black at the end, I'm going to just grab this lighter or this dark gray, hold down my mouse key, drag it right on top of this little gradient slider right here, and you can see that it updated the gradient. All right, so that's fine. These sliders, I can move this left or right, and as you can see, it's updating the gradient in there. And there's a little diamond at the top that you can also, again, we zoom in a little bit here, you can grab this and move it to the left or right to adjust how far your lighter and darker parts of the gradient move in or out. So let's grab that second ring, the outer ring. I'm going to go ahead now and do the same thing, just going to apply that gradient. But this time I want it to be a little bit different. I'm going to make this look like a little button, a little dimensional object. And to do that, very simple, all I'm going to do is hit this little tiny button here that says reverse gradient. So just click on that, and you can see it makes the gradient go in the opposite direction. And I like that. I think there's maybe a little too much highlight. So I'm going to go ahead and grab out of my swatches again a really, really light color, not completely white, but maybe it's about 10% gray, and drag it in there. You get just a little bit less. All right, that's looking fairly cool, but I want to make it pop a little bit more. So to do that, I'm going to click on my stroke and do the same thing. Go ahead and click here on the gradient to activate it. And now I've just added a gradient to the stroke. Well, there's no stroke now, so let me click on my stroke panel here. And I'm gonna just open this stroke up, pop it up, maybe do a 3-point stroke, and bring up the gradient panel again. And you can just see there that there is a stroke, and there are a few options here. So you can see I can apply the gradient within a stroke, along a stroke, and across a stroke. So within a stroke, I'm not crazy about how that's looking. I'm going ahead and try along the stroke. So here you can see that it starts at the darkest part and wraps around the object and gets to the lightest part. That's not what I want either. Let's go ahead and apply across the stroke. This is getting a little more interesting for me. I'm going to deselect this for just a second so you can see it. And you can see now that it's added a little bit of another little bit of dimension by adding that little bit of a gradient there. Let's try it the other way. Let's see what if I reverse the gradient and have the dark part on the inside. Now it looks a little bit like there's maybe a shadow or a little blur or a little fuzz around that edge, and I think I like that. So yeah, you can see that you can do quite a bit with just very, very simple linear gradients, applying gradients in different directions, applying them across the stroke. So I'm moving on. I'm going to go to this logo that I've created for some social media company, who knows what they're called. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this blue. It's really dull right now. I'm going to go ahead and activate the fill in my gradient panel, and then just click on this gradient, and it's going to fill that again with the gray gradient. Now, of course, I don't want it to be that gray, so let's go ahead and change some colors. Now, I did just show you that we can click in the swatches panel and drag things over. What happens if your swatches panel is put away and you don't want to keep having to drag it out? Well, it's really handy. We can just double click on the gradient slider and the little alternate color UI pops up. So I'm going to click on this really nice light blue here, and then I'll click down back into the gradient panel, double click, and grab this really dark blue here. All right, now I like those, but I don't want it to go left to right. I want it to go up and down. So again, I can't just reverse it. What I need to do is change the angle, and luckily the gradient panel has you covered. So I can go here and click on this angle, and I can choose a 90 degree, a 45. I'm going to say minus 90. Zoom back out. Oh, it's not actually what I want. I think I wanted a regular 90 degree angle. So back up here, 90 degrees. Terrific. Okay. So that's some quick ways to, again, add new colors to a gradient, and then I can also change the directions by using something called the gradient annotator. And to do that, all I need to do is click on the hit G on my keyboard, or click on the gradient tool over here, and you can immediately see that there's this slider. And this basically takes the same place. It does the same function as this little slider that's here in the gradient panel. So I can click on this little light blue, drag it down to make it more light, drag it back up. The other thing that's cool about this is that I can also, it's a little bit as the YouTuber at Sartori Graphics says, it's a bit fiddly. So here you can see I can grab it and make it longer or shorter, because that little dotted square came up. The one I'm looking for is actually one that looks like a little rotator, and that's where you get it. You have to go all the way to the end, and then I can click, hold my mouse key down, and drag that around and take it to a 45 degree angle, and then I can go ahead and drag this. I can reposition it on my object. I can grab here and make it longer or shorter. I can adjust the diamond slider in the middle to get the gradient to do what I want it to do. All right, so that's looking a little bit better. I think what I'm going to do now is add a stroke to that. But before I do that, I think I want to save this gradient. So to save a gradient, there's two things you can do. You could either click and drag it into your swatches panel if you have your swatches panel open, or you can click on the little triangle drop down right here, and that will give you a little tiny menu, and at the very bottom there's an icon that says add to swatches. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and it just added it to my swatches. When I open my swatches up, you can see the new gradient is right here. All right, let's bring this up again. I think I'm going to activate the stroke and go ahead and click on the same gradient. And once again, open up my stroke panel and make that a 2-point stroke this time. And let's try a couple of variations here. That's actually not bad. That's sort of darker at the top, lighter at the bottom. It gives it sort of a reverse highlight effect, which I think is pretty cool. Let's see what it looks like if we add this. This turns it into like a little lip around the edge of the logo, and that's pretty cool too. Let's see if I make that a little bit thicker, what happens. Oh, I've got to select it. To affect it, you must select it. And back out just a little bit. Yeah, that's all right. I'm kind of okay with either of those two options. The along stroke was this one within stroke, and that's fairly cool. Or this one, a cross stroke. Yeah, those are both pretty interesting. So great. We have saved a gradient, and we've also learned about the gradient annotator. I could probably add some bells and whistles to this, and a little drop shadow, a little bit, mess with that B a little bit, but I'm not going to do that today. So what I'm going to do instead is talk about the radial gradients. And to make a radial gradient, again, all we have to do is make sure we're in our gradient panel and I'm activated. I'm going to hit X on my keyboard to activate that fill color and click on my radial gradient right here. All right, so I've got the same color, the same gradient that I had, and it's just turned it into a radial gradient. It goes from inside to outside or outside to inside if you hit the little reverse button. And that looks all right, but I do want to show you a little bit more about controlling these things and adding to them. So I'm going to change this gradient to one of the others. I'm going to go to this orange-yellow one that's in our list right here. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to just radial gradient and talk about these little guys here. So the sliders, as you can see, are, again, adjustable, just like I showed you before. We can adjust the little diamonds at the top and the sliders at the bottom. The other thing that's cool, though, is that we can add and subtract with these. So in this case, I think what I'm going to do is first just try changing the colors. So let's go ahead and double click on the darkest orange, bring up my alternate color UI, and let's make this like a dark purpley pink color. And then I'll double click the second one and make this a reddish color. It's looking good so far. I'm gonna double click this third one and let's make this a really bright pink. Okay, and then let's try a green just first, just to see what happens. I don't think this is gonna look good. Yeah, it's not what I like. All right, so never fear. Gradient slider is not a problem. I'm not going to have a problem. All right, I'm going to edit that out. So we can easily edit this and change it to do what we want to do. I'm going to grab this green by clicking and holding on my mouse key and just dragging it straight off the bottom. And that's all right. I can now go back in and adjust this, slide that pink out, slide the yellow out a little bit. And if I wanted to save this, I could do what we did before by using just the little drop down triangle, or if I have my swatches panel open, click on the gradient right here and drag it into the swatches panel. But I'm not going to do that today. What I am going to do is, I guess I didn't show you how to add a new one in. So let's say I wanted to add another stop in between these two right here. I'm going to get rid of this one and then say, oh gosh, I really want I want that back. So if I hover down below the slider bar, you can see there's a little plus sign there, a little plus sign right there on the cursor. So I'm going to just click right there once, and there, voila, adds a brand new one. I can double click on that and go in and change the color to whatever I want. Okay, so just click right beneath it to add, click, hold your mouse key, and drag off the bottom to remove. Last thing I'm going to show you today, I've got, I'm going to make a copy of this by clicking on it, holding down my mouse key, holding down Option, and then dragging, Option or Alt if you're on a PC. And then I'm going to go ahead and squish this by just clicking, holding down, and dragging. And I'm just squishing my oval. And you can see what it's done is it has changed the aspect ratio of that oval. Let's bring that up to the center. And you can actually see that by looking in the gradient panel. It's now right here. It says 58.566. So that's pretty cool. But you'll notice that if I draw out a brand new oval like this, I've got the circular aspect ratio. And sometimes you have an oval and you want to create a gradient in that oval and you need to have that aspect ratio changed. So it's really not that hard to do. Sometimes it'll take some trial and error. I know this is in the 50s because it's roughly the same as this other oval. So I'm going to double click here and I'm going to just type in 52 and see what happens. Hit tab on my keyboard. Looks like I got it pretty close. Okay, so we've saved a gradient, we've added new colors, we've basically put gradients on fills and strokes. Over here, your other options that we have are the freeform gradient. Now that is a whole different animal, and that's going to take a video all by itself. Okay, I hope you found that useful. If you have other questions or there's something I didn't cover, please leave me a comment down below. And again, if you like this video, like, subscribe, send me money by passenger pigeon, tell your friends, do all those things. And go ahead and take a look at my channel for other useful tools, techniques, and trips. And go ahead and look at my channel to find other useful tips and techniques and tricks for Adobe Illustrator. That's it for now. I'll see you next time.